together on a proposal and able to go up to Washington and get funding for it. So when all these new assistant professors came, George wanted to get them integrated in the research game. And so basically he started telling the full professors that they were senior enough that they could get their own grants. That didn't sit well with most of the full professors. And so George Nicholson was sort of not well received, and some of the people that had been hired under this NSF grant were not also consistent with the kind of strategy that the department had before. So it turned out to be, unlike Iowa, it turned out to be a very contentious department by 1971, 72. And George Nicholson was pressured. Ultimately, he resigned the chairmanship. And he had been chair for 20 some odd years and was not a research guy as the rest of the full professors were. So on December afternoon, he committed suicide. And so the department was very contentious, very split, not a happy place. That's totally opposite to my remembrance of the department here. So I went on sabbatical leave. I was eligible sabbatical leave at 76, 77 academic year, and actually I was a little bit past that being eligible. So Wally Smith, who was sort of a good friend of mine, had an arrangement with some folks in England, and so I spent a year at University of Manchester. And by then I was an associate professor. I had just been an associate professor for a couple of years. And it was interesting because, as many of you probably know, in UK, in each department there's typically only one professor. And then the other ranks are reader, senior lecturer, and lecturer. So I went there and I was appointed as visiting professor. I was 31 years old, that's pretty young to be a professor. So I got invited around a lot, had a great year. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting was that people had actually read some of my papers, which didn't seem to be the case in Chapel Hill. And so I kind of came back and decided that I would look for another job. So I owed the university 1 year after my sabbatical. And when I got back, I interviewed a couple places, General Motors Research Lab, but the one I really liked was the Office of Naval Research. So I became the director of the Statistics and Probability Program. That was in 1978. And my new boss at the Navy said, why don't you propose some research areas that you think will be useful in the future. And so I gave a talk in the fall of 1978 at the National Academy of Science on the topic of computational statistics, which was the first time that phrase had been used as far as I knew. I'm getting the 2-minute signal. So I went there in '78. I became the director of statistics of the mathematical and computer science division in 1982. I took on Java Solo and Honor for all of mathematical sciences in the Navy, all basic research in the Navy. I ultimately also took on the role of computer science research for the Star Wars program, SDIO, Strategic Defense Initiative Office. So I had a good run. I had an interesting time. The last year that I was division head, I made 24 trips in 12 months. So I was being run ragged, doing jobs that had belonged to 3 different people at the same time. So I started looking around, and George Mason had just formed a new information technology and engineering school. So they hired me initially as a systems engineer. The guy who was chairman of systems engineering was actually an operations research guy, and so when the dean asked him what to do, how to do new hires, he wanted to have mostly operations research people. So the dean rebelled against that, and so he split what was systems engineering into systems engineering and information systems. And the other department was called Operations Research and Applied Statistics, which it has the acronym ORAS, which in Latin means let us pray. So we carried on in the Applied Statistics and Operations Research Department for a few years. I developed an MS program in statistical science in 1989. I developed a PhD in 1990 and formed with several other people the Institute for Computational Sciences. The staff department was formed in 1992. I was the founding chair of that department. And so ultimately we formed in 2006 a department called Computational Sciences and Informatics, Computational Data Sciences Department. And so actually I have a split appointment, so it's split between statistics and the CDS department, the Computational Data Sciences department. So I'm not just in one department, I have to report to 2 masters. Okay, so that's a little bit of background.